What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling, episode 100. I am, of course, your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Thursday. It is time to end our week as we discuss AEW Dynamite. Seeing the people start to come into the chat in the comment room. Matthew knows what's up. Time to get spicy, he says. Why, whatever do you mean, Matthew? You make it sound like I despise AEW. We all know that's not the case. By no means do I wish it to fail or anything of the sort, but there are definitely flaws within the company. Quite a few of them were portrayed last night. But before we get to last night, we've got to rewind back a little bit. As a lot of you guys know, Tuesday night was NXT Spring Break-In. So I watched the live coverage so that I could do the watch along with Noah Foster. Then I had to watch back the West Coast feed so I could take my notes of everything. Wasn't able to watch NWA Power. So I watched that last night after Dynamite. Let's go ahead and discuss that first, since that was a Tuesday show. NWA Power kicked off for the week with Alex Misery and Mecha Wolf taking on Daisy Kill and Talos. This was part of the United States Tag Team Tournament, to fill the void that was left earlier in the tapings. I'm forgetting who surrendered them now so that they could get the world tag team title shot. But in any event, getting this whole tournament thing going, it was solid tag team action. Solid tag team action kicking off the show. Some hard hitting, some high flying. A little bit of insanity. Had an off of the entranceway bump that was pretty chaotic. Talos was able to get the pinfall for his team, allowing him and Daisy Kill to advance. We then had a promo for the Southern Six. Didn't really catch everything that was going on here, if I'm being honest. But they were basically hyping up their upcoming match, which will probably be on next week's show. Then we had the match that I was most interested in this week. We had Natalia Markova taking on Kenzie Page for the NWA World Women's Championship, the Burke. This was an absolute banger of a match. Took two Kenzie cutters to put away Markova, and still your NWA World Women's Champion. If I'm being honest here, I honestly thought the belt was going to change hands in this one. They've been building Markova up as this woman who can never win the big one, so I thought she was going to get the big one here. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. After the match, Vampiro comes out along with Alex Misery because he's kind of the father figure to Mecha Wolf and Alex Misery. And they come out with a bouquet of black roses for Natalia Markova. They're trying to bring her into the fold. They're trying to woo her. She wants no part of it and throws the flowers on the ground. We then had a Miserably Faithful promo from the Sinister Minister and company before we go into the main event, which is Carson Drake and Magnum Muscle taking on Miserably Faithful. Part of the Magnum Muscle is Mims, who's been having a huge feud with Max the Impaler, who's part of Miserably Faithful. Solid tag team action here that saw Miserably Faithful pick up the victory in order to end our 1 hour episode of NWA Power. All in all, very solid action. I'd probably give this week's NWA a 7 out of 10. The main event was misplaced. It shouldn't have been the main event. The tag team match was slightly predictable as far as Alex Misery and Mecha Wolf versus Daisy Kill and Talos. There's been a lot of push behind Daisy Kill and Talos as of late if you tune in every week. Disappointing in the outcome of the women's title match, not the action or the storytelling or anything itself, but just the outcome of it. So I would give it a 7 out of 10 for this week. Curious what you guys think of NWA Power for this week. I did see Keen Mike put up that it was surprisingly a good episode. All the episodes that they've posted so far from the Hard Times tapings have been great episodes. Hopefully they'll be able to keep up this momentum. Going to take a quick moment, run a commercial here, show you where you can find and follow all the friends of the multiverse of media. And then we're going to get into what you guys are waiting to hear. Me talk about last night's AEW Dynamite. Stay tuned.
And now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
And we are back. All right, everybody, buckle up. Getting ready to get into last night's episode of Dynamite. Let me just say, for starters, again, this is our 100th episode of For the Love of Wrestling. I'm still mind blown that I've gotten to 100, and especially so quickly, but that's what happens when you do shows every day. For the first time ever, we're not just broadcasting on my YouTube channel. We're on my Twitter accounts as well, the Casa D18 Studios account and my personal Twitter account. So we're broadcasting on 3 different platforms right now. And we've pretty much got coverage on all 3 platforms. So thank you to everybody out there watching. This is going to be something we do going forward in broadcasting on all 3. Figured it was a good thing to upgrade to with our 100th episode. Let's get into Dynamite now. Dynamite kicked off with the Elite and Jack Perry arriving at Daly's place. Separate cars, the Elite show up first. Jack Perry comes behind them. Security then tried to prevent Jack Perry from entering, but the Massey brothers tell security to back off. He's with them. We then go inside the ring, and Orange Cassidy's music hits, and Trent Beretta attacks him as he tries to make his way to the ring. Once in the ring, and once he's beaten down Orange Cassidy a little bit further, Trent calls out Chuck Taylor and tries to convince him that Orange Cassidy never cared about him or them, that he's a conceited, arrogant prick. He was supposed to be their cheerleader, and he ended up making them his lackeys. He tries to convince Chuck of all this. They set up to give the people what they want. They're going to embrace in the ring. But Chuck says that he always thought that Trent was a piece of shit, and he throws punches at Trent Beretta, taking Orange Cassidy's side. Not a huge surprise here. Glad to see Chuck Taylor still on the side of Orange Cassidy. Is it a swerve? Is it going to last long? Still trying to figure out where Chris Statlander fits in all this. It was definitely an interesting angle to further at this point. We then go backstage and we get a video promo from Jon Moxley about his upcoming match against Powerhouse Hobbs. If you're keeping track, we've now had 3 different segments and we still haven't had our world champion yet. Well, at this point, we get Swerve Strickland coming out. Finally, our brand new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. But he doesn't get a microphone. He doesn't get to cut a promo. He doesn't get to celebrate his championship victory. No, nay, nay. They put him in an eliminator match against Kyle Fletcher. And this could have been a fantastic match. And it was very good for what it was. But the fact that the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion was in the opening fucking contest with no promo time in an eliminator match, that they freaking let the challenger lose once again. And then they left the match while it was going to show the dumb fucks and Perry the Platypus and Okada going into Tony Khan's office. Completely took away from the match. Swerve Strickland is your new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. He should have been in the main event. He should have had the opportunity to cut a promo. He should have been in a more meaningful match. What they did to Swerve was akin to what WWE was doing to CM Punk when he was the World Heavyweight Champion. And it's like, you're the champ, but you're not our guy. We're going to stick you in the middle of the card here in some bullshit feud. This was just fucking absurd. I don't understand the logic behind it, but it becomes very clear what the logic was behind it throughout the course of the evening, as this is now the second time in 20 minutes that we've seen the Elite and Jack Perry. Because we saw them arrive, then we had to cut backstage and put them in the bigger screen of a picture-in-picture, leaving Swerve and Fletcher in the small screen during the match. Swerve, of course, did win, which means Kyle Fletcher is eliminated from contention for the title, which I've been going off about this for a minute. What is the point in having an eliminator contenders match if the person in the elimination spot doesn't get to win every now and again? In all the time that I've been watching AEW, I think I've seen one eliminator match where the person actually won and received a title shot later on. Every other eliminator match, the challenger loses. What's the point? You need to build up competition for your champion. Having young guys like a Kyle Fletcher win, even though we know he's not going to take the title off of Swerve, at least begins to build up some of your talent. Kyle Fletcher's a member of the Callis family. He's got a long-standing connection with Will Ospreay. You could almost have Fletcher win via interference from the Callis family so as to not make Swerve look completely weak. and then have Fletcher be a guy that Swerve goes to before getting to Osprey. Like, there's ways you could set this up. I understand you don't want Swerve to lose his first match out after winning the championship. That makes perfect sense to me. But then don't call this an eliminator match. Just book it because. We then go backstage and we get a promo from Thunder Rosa. And Deonna Purrazzo comes in, interjects herself into the promo. Two women brawl. And apparently we're going to get that match now on Rampage or Collision this week. You know, one of the shows I don't tune into because those shows are god-awful. We then go to Mina Shirakawa versus Anna Jay. It was a decent enough match, but why were they fighting? Mina defeats Anna Jay. Is she even all elite? Why wouldn't you protect your actual talent on the roster? Toni Storm comes out for some reason. It's just degenerates. I love Toni Storm, don't get me wrong, but why is Mina Shirakawa, who is not on your roster, defeating essentially a day one talent in Anna Jay? It makes no sense to me. Make it make sense. And thank you, James. This is why I refuse to watch the television product. Bullshit like that. They are on the verge of losing me. I really wanted to give AEW a chance, but they are seriously on the verge of losing me. I told you guys on Open Mic Night, and I told you guys on Inside the Mind of the Renegade, if things don't change by Double or Nothing, I am out. The only time you will see me talk about AEW is if there's an Open Mic Night topic or if I'm needed for commentary on a watch-along. Just horrid. No idea what Toni Storm said. And then Serena Deeb comes out, and apparently she wants a title match. Couldn't really hear her. The audio issues of the show were horrid. Just dreadful. Like, I'm not even at the end of the show yet, and let me just say, this is the worst episode of AEW Dynamite that I have ever seen at this point. Just dreadful. We then get Stokely Hathaway and Chris Statlander in the ring. They give a little speech and then introduce Willow Nightingale. Willow begins to tell her story to the crowd about how in 2020 she was in the crowd at Daly's Place, watching the shows during the pandemic, trying to get her big break. Come 2022, get the graphic. Willow Nightingale is all elite. And now here she is 2 years after that as champion. This heartfelt speech and promo detailing her rise of success in AEW. And cue the music. Here comes Mercedes Moné to crash the party. They begin to go back and forth arguing about who attacked who. You know, Willow thinks that Mercedes attacked her. Mercedes thinks that Willow attacked her. They both talk about maybe it was Julia Hart trying to take them out. And then she asks Mercedes if she blames her for the injury that Mercedes suffered at Resurgence. And Mercedes tells her that you're not ready for that answer. You're not ready for the truth. Mercedes says in 32 days she will be the face of TBS. And she goes, Statlander tries to turn Willow around. Mercedes cocks back and she slaps the shit out of Willow. Now that one move right there, coupled with the fact that Stokely originally didn't like Willow, leads me to believe that Chris Statlander is the one that attacked Mercedes in the dark and attacked Willow prior to her tag team match with Adam Copeland last week. I think we're going to get a heel turn from Chris Statlander. We still don't know what Trent Beretta whispered in her ear when everything was going down with Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. I see a Willow versus Stat feud building here. I would almost be willing to bet money come Double or Nothing is when we'll get the big reveal and Chris Statlander will cost Willow the title, helping it get to Mercedes. We then had what they called a casino gauntlet. And correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. A gauntlet match is where two people start, and as soon as a pinfall or submission is registered, the next person comes out. That is not what happened here. We started out with Switchblade Jay White versus Dante Martin, which, okay, I love Dante Martin, but this is essentially a squash match at this point for Switchblade Jay White. There's no way Dante Martin is going to beat the Switchblade. It just, no. But it doesn't end in a pinfall or submission at this point because within a few minutes, we get Penta El Zero Miedo coming out. It's like, wait a minute, is this a gauntlet match? Is this a battle royal? What the fuck is going on here? And apparently it was a one fall to a finish gauntlet match, but they were trotting them out there in time increments like it was a battle royal or a Royal Rumble. It was fucking stupid. If you're going to call it a gauntlet match, let it be a gauntlet match. If you're not going to treat it like a gauntlet match, then come up with some other stupid name for it. But if you use the term gauntlet, then that is what we expect. It was just. And then you get some other talents in here that are like, okay, cool. Well, I wouldn't mind seeing any of these guys win. The winner gets a shot at the international title and Roderick Strong. Again, we've already got Jay White in here. We've got Dante Martin. We've got Penta El Zero Miedo. Kyle O'Reilly comes out, which means that he could win another opportunity after this past Dynasty show, get himself a rematch against Roderick Strong, and then we get Will Ospreay. And I'm not hating Ospreay, but as soon as we see him in this match, we knew he was going to win. They're not going to have him job out this quickly. Even though they could have had him not be the person to take the fall, therefore technically not losing the match, but not winning the match, but we knew what they were going to do here. After Ospreay, we got Lance Archer, then we got Commander, then we got Jay Lethal. And that was the end of it, because Ospreay got a pinfall over Commander, I think. Irrelevant at this point. But we should have had Roderick Strong versus Jay White. We should have had Roderick Strong versus Penta. We should have had Roderick Strong versus Jay Lethal. Any of those, I think, would have been better than having Roderick Strong versus Will Ospreay. And again, that's not hatred on Ospreay, but Ospreay should be in the world title picture, not the international title picture. Period. We then had the learning tree. Chris Jericho come out, and he began to cut a promo, and Big Bill comes out. And apparently Big Bill wants to sit under Chris Jericho's learning tree. Jericho says basically that he's had his eyes on Big Bill for a while. He's going to consider it. And that's kind of how the segment ends. There's no real resolution here. We then get a backstage promo with Renee Paquette talking to Don Callis, Will Ospreay, and Kyle Fletcher. Callis basically reprimands Fletcher for losing, tries to get Ospreay to go back to using the Tiger Driver 91 because he was about to hit it onto Fletcher and he stopped. And because of what happened with the match against Danielson and him saying that he's never going to use that move again, but that hesitation could have cost him the title and the opportunity. Callis takes off because he's got to go manage Hobbs to the ring for a title shot, and Ospreay kind of apologizes to Fletcher for the way that Callis treated him. From there, we go to our main event, or at least as they called it on the air, Jon Moxley versus Powerhouse Hobbs for the IWGP Championship. Can somebody explain to me why the IWGP Championship is in the main event of an AEW television show? We literally had a brand new AEW champion that should have been in this spot. Even with it being an eliminator match, should have been in this spot. You're the AEW champion. It is an AEW television show. They should have been in the main event. But because it's the IWGP title, that got the main event spot. And I'm sorry, I like Hobbs, but Kyle Fletcher is a 10 times better wrestler than Hobbs is. Mox gets the victory as he always does. And then Takeshita comes out, basically alluding to the fact that he wants Moxley next. Possibly going to get Mox versus Takeshita, double or nothing. And this was our main event, right? No, because now we go backstage and we get Katsuyori Shibata with Renee Paquette. Shibata, who can't cut a promo in English, so he has to use a fucking Google translator to speak for him. And they don't even just let it be a promo. They've got to have it end with Shibata flirting with Renee about how the rhinestones on her top make a heart and how that's cute. What? Let Shibata keep that up. He's going to mess around and find out. Going to have freaking Moxley coming and beating the piss out of him for flirting with his wife. Then we go to what is actually the main event. We get Tony Schiavone in the middle of the ring, and he calls out Jack Perry. Perry panders to the crowd for a little bit, talking about his history in AEW and what Jacksonville means to him, blah, blah, blah. Then he calls out Tony Khan. Tony Khan comes out, and Jack Perry says to Tony Khan, basically, believe it or not, all he's ever wanted is what's best for AEW. And you can see Tony Khan across from him, going like this and mouthing like, me too, me too. Perry says, let's shake hands, reinstate me to the roster, and let's move on from everything. And they shake hands. They embrace, because Tony Khan and his hugs when he signs new talent. And then we get the attack from Jack Perry on a Tony Khan. The Elite come out and they look like they're going to save TK for a brief moment. And they even have TK set up for the BTE trigger, but they decide not to pull the trigger at that point. They then turn on TK as he gets scooped up for the tombstone pile driver. The other Massey brother goes up to the top rope. They hit the Meltzer driver onto Tony Khan, which I hope now it's going to be called the Tony Khan driver or the TK driver. TK is now laid out in the middle of the ring as the Elite and Jack Perry stand tall, arms up in the air. We get talent rushing out to kind of check up on him. We get referees rushing out to check up on him. We get Shad Khan, Tony's father, the actual owner of AEW, coming out to check up on him as our show goes off the air. What in the fuck was I just watching? This was just stupid. We had so many segments with the Elite and Massey's throughout the entire thing, and it was just stupid. This entire episode of Dynamite is what is wrong with AEW, because they prioritized this stupid angle with the Masseys, who are EVPs, and TK, who swore he would never be an on-air character, over their own world heavyweight champion. The world champion for AEW had to suffer because they wanted to put themselves in this spot. This is the stuff that is going to drive me from AEW, and I'm already 1 foot out the door. The only reason I'm not pulling the trigger yet is because I gave my word for Double or Nothing. I'm waiting to see what they do with Mercedes. But if they do with Mercedes what I think they're going to do, on top of everything I've been seeing, I'm gone. This is absurdity. I jokingly yesterday put -5 out of 10 in the Rangers of Wrestling review that Datilla did. This episode of Dynamite legitimately gets a 0. I feel bad for every performer that was on this show. Now, Walter, you giving it a D as being generous. I feel bad for every person that was on this show. Orange Cassidy, Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, Swerve Strickland, Kyle Fletcher, Thunder Rosa, Deonna Purrazzo, Mina Shirakawa, Anna Jay, Tony Storm, Serena Deeb, Stokely Hathaway, Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale, Mercedes Moné, Jay White, Dante Martin, Penta, Kyle O'Reilly, Osprey, Archer, Commander, Lethal, Jericho, Big Bill, Renee Paquette, Don Callis, Moxley, Hobbs, Shibata. I feel bad for every single one of them on this show, because from what I understand, this is not what AEW was supposed to be. 100%. This was worse than the All In footage episode. This was god awful. All right. Before we get off the air, Going to take another moment to throw to our watch along trailer, show you all the stuff coming up across the multiverse of media here from next Tuesday with night 2 of Spring Breakin' and going forward. We will be right back after this with our shills and our goodbyes.
And now, preview time. So let's take a look at what's coming your way.
And we are back. Sorry about that. Needed to get a couple of things loaded up into the stream here so I could get them for the shills. Just, it's disappointing because you look at AEW and on the surface, they've got such a stacked roster. They've got such intelligent people working for them that they shouldn't be doing this type of stuff. And for whatever reason, they just can't get past the petty childish crap. And it's disconcerting. It really is. All right, we got a lot of stuff to shill here today, so bear with me. As Safet so eloquently pointed out, tonight's the NFL draft, which this isn't a sports show, but we do have the sports bar on the channel here, and then the WWE draft tomorrow night. Relax, Safet. Let me get to the shills. Because part of the shills are that today, kicking off at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, Statboy Mike will be opening the doors to the sports bar to provide live coverage of the NFL draft. Not sure what time that'll go till, but Statboy Mike will be there in order to discuss the draft picks that are being chosen for everybody. We then have on Friday, we've got a full SmackDown draft night 1 recap that'll be going across the multiverse of media. That'll be kicking off 30 minutes after SmackDown goes off the air. So for the West Coasters, that would be 7:30. For you East Coasters, that would be 10:30. I will be on, and I'm not sure who will be joining me, but we'll be discussing all the draft moves. We're not going to be talking about the show as a whole. It's not a SmackDown review. I want you to come back to For the Love of Wrestling on Monday for that. But we are going to feature and discuss all the draft picks. Saturday, of course, open mic night, game night. We've got Match Game on deck as the reigning and defending Game Show Night champion, Greg Cherry, takes on his challenger, Emmanuel Dominguez. Did Match Game last year, and it was a blast, so we decided to bring it back again this year. So make sure you guys tune in to open mic night for that, 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 o'clock Eastern. First hour will be Match Game, and then we'll go into our traditional open mic night shenanigans. On Monday, 30 minutes after Raw goes off the air, so 8:30 Pacific and 11:30 Eastern, we will be live with our Raw draft coverage. Again, just focusing on the draft picks, not talking about the show as a whole, because we want you to come back to For the Love of Wrestling the following day for the Raw recap. But we will be discussing the draft picks. Again, I will be there for that. I'm not sure who will join me, but should be a fun night of conversation. And that's going to pretty much wrap everything up for the day. Again, make sure you're back here on Monday for the Love of Wrestling, where I will be discussing tonight's episode of Impact and tomorrow's episode of SmackDown. Same bad time, same bad channel. Want to thank everybody for joining me and tuning in today, and for the love that I've received on all the different platforms. Making it to 100 episodes, such a milestone already on this show. Again, thank you all for joining us, and we will see you on Monday for another episode of For the Love of Wrestling.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.